Now, I always say, if you don't live in this part of the country, you live in some warm weather climate where you can ride all year long, you're not missing a thing, believe me. This is actually one of the few days it's snowing inside my garage. Snowing on my RD here. Obviously, this is a 100-year-old garage. In fact, it's exactly 100-year-old. So what I wanted to do today is make some little handlebar shims, and I'll just explain what I'm hoping to do on a snowy day, and I mean really snowy, crappy day. Now, I've had this bike for several years, and what I did is over the years I've made some 1/4 inch, then 1/2 inch, and what I've done is raised the handlebars up. Now, what I really wanted to do, my first choice would have been to buy these risers from Kawasaki. Luciano tried finding them on eBay, and they're not available from Kawasaki anymore. So that leaves me with only one choice: to make some more spacers. I want to raise them up about another 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4 inch. What I found out is every time I've raised them up just a little bit, bike's gotten more comfortable for me anyway, and I haven't lost anything in a transition. Now, so what I did, the first thing, I look here, I have about 1 inch before I'm going to run into any kind of clearance issue. I'm going to have to, because the brake line is at the end of its travel now. It's starting to have some tension on it, but I have plenty of brake lines to put on there. So what I thought I'd do today, because the snow is really coming down, it's really brutal out here in fact, I wanted to make a little pattern for I have a pattern, in fact I don't even have to make one. Make up some aluminum spacers, and then you can see what will happen is there'll be an air gap here. I want to try to I have a spare part of this, I want to make a spare, modify it, maybe add a little piece of aluminum or carbon fiber here. So that'll give me a nice little project to work on a snowy day. And it's supposed to really be brutal the next couple of days, so having a nice indoor project to work on where I don't have to be in a garage, it'll be nice. Now, before I start, this is another little tip. I have 3 spare batteries for various things when I check the electric riding gear, and spare batteries for various bikes. But I always put a piece of tape on top, and I try to charge them once every month or so, month and a half, even 2 months. But this way I can keep track of when they've been charged in this really cold weather. Just a little tip I thought I'd include. So let me just explain exactly what I'm trying to accomplish here. This will be the next thing I work on. What has happened when I got this bike and I rode it, of course, the first thing I did, I had gotten a bike from Luciano, a 750, used it for track days, a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. Loved the bike, so I was looking for another one. That original bike didn't have a title. Then I found one with a title in Patterson, very inexpensive. We went down and pulled it out of a dumpster. It was in terrible shape. And as I rebuilt it, and of course it's all documented on these windy famous videos here. The only thing about the bike I didn't like, it was a little bit too low for me for street riding. So what I did over the years, I had put a 1/2 inch spacer, another 1/2 inch spacer, then a 1/4 inch spacer, and I ran out of spacers. Because the bolts, I had to buy longer bolts. And I said, I'll live with that for the summer or whatever. And every time I'd ride the bike, on the ride home, after maybe 100, 115 miles, 20 miles, it's a 60-mile ride each way to the park, so to where we hang out. What I thought is, I'm going to bite the bullet here. It's crappy winter weather. I have to buy 2 longer bolts from Bolt Depot. I have those on order. And I'll make some more shims. Now, what it's going to allow me to do is infinitely shim this. I can go click, 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 click by adding and subtracting shims. If I were able to buy these pieces, and we looked on the internet, they're not available from any source I know. If you can find these they're for a 250 Ninja, well, you know, Bob Navola I know has 2, so if his handlebars are missing, I'll know. But anyway, they would have solved the problem in a different way. This way is going to be fine. It's going to be inexpensive. I'm going to spend this snowy day making up some of these spacers. I thought I'd share that. And this would work, of course, on a lot of other bikes besides this bike. The idea is, and it's a thing of, when you're 18 years old or 30, maybe even 40 if you're in good shape, you can put the handlebars down by the bottom axle. But as you get older, after 100 miles, 150 miles, you're doing your sport bike thing, and all of a sudden you just wish you could get back. And I'm at the point, 72 years old, I want the handlebars up a little higher. Maybe you do too. Now, anybody that's worked at my shop knows I keep a box of scrap. In fact, I have a nice big piece here. From other projects I've worked on. I think that'll solve our needs. And the first thing is to lay out the dimensions. I want to cut one piece out, drill the holes, and then go out to the garage and just make sure I have that this is going to fit, because what's going to happen, these bolt holes have to clear the fork legs. That's one of the issues I have. So I'm going to allow that. That's why I moved that center line off. I want to make sure I'm not butting up on this, and I'll have to do some grinding then. But the easiest way is make one prototype. Once I have a piece I know is the right dimension, and I can just go then continue down and make sure the hole spacing is exactly accurate, I'll be good to go. Now, I always like to drill the holes while the piece is in one piece and then do the final sawing. But this is what tells you, I like to use a slow speed on this grade of aluminum. This is good quality aluminum. This is not Home Depot aluminum. And if you get the drill to make a nice cut like that, you know you're pretty close on having a good drill speed combination. Now, let's just see if we got this one. It's always a good idea to drill the holes first. Just makes it easier to hold apart. And we can go over to the saw and just cut the rest out. Now, a side benefit of doing it this way, a small side benefit, these parts from Kawasaki were $137 each. And at discount, they were about, I'm assuming you could get them for $100 a piece if you had the dealer discount. But again, here's the whole problem. Nobody has them. They're not in stock anywhere. Now, of course, you can hacksaw these parts, or if you have any kind of saw. Like I said, a hacksaw may be easier, but it saves a little time. Now, the final part of this is I want to get a nice fit, just maybe oversized by one drill size on this. I don't want to have this. That's not going to work. You would think with 10,000 drills, no, that's not going to work. You can tell by looking it's not going to work. That's what I want, one size over. And the purpose of that is if the bolts go nice and straight, it gives me a little bit of clearance. If I make this super tight, then as I'm sliding this through the spacers, it could catch and be a pain. Just clean this up just a little bit. I'll countersink the holes ever so slightly, just to make putting it on and off a little bit easier. Break all the corners so we don't have any radius, any razor blade edges on this. Now these parts are going to be flat black when I'm ready, well, after they're installed, and I don't have to make them too fancy because you don't really see them, but I just want them to be mechanically sound. And the most important, the absolutely most important thing is when I line these up, I got it backwards, that the holes line up exactly right. I got it backwards again. And don't interfere with the fork leg. So it looks like our little prototype. Now I just got to replicate this as many times as I want to have the adjustability here. Now, because if we were going to see these parts, I would run over to the polishing wheel and polish them up like chrome or whatever. Notice I say light chrome, not chrome. But having an accurate prototype now, it's just going to be a question of replicating these steps. And when I make the multiple parts, what's going to happen is I can check each one against the prototype, because I know this one fits on the bike the way it should. I've got the clearance right. I've got the bolt hole diameter with a little bit of slop. I drilled it the second time to an oversize, probably a couple of thousandths oversize, just so it'll be easy to assemble this. And well, what this is going to do is give me infinite adjustability of the handlebars. Infinite. I can take these out, add them. And I have found absolutely no downside at all to having handlebar spacers. And another nice thing, not that this would matter so much, but what's really nice about this, you could do this on a lot of different bikes. They make handlebar spacers. They're usually relatively expensive. These you can make up yourself in one snowy afternoon, I think. And it's just a question, and the only thing left to do is replicate. As long as I'm laying these out, and of course a T-square is a good thing to use to lay it out. I've got the dimensions relatively accurate, and now I can check each one and make sure my holes are, before I go. Yeah, I've got some of these. In fact, I did them all this way. Okay. Make sure they're all. Now, what I always do, I take a small drill and spot drill. Just put a spot on each one before I do the big drill. Or even drill that drill through. Because, first of all, if they're off a little bit, I can turn the part over and just re-spot it on the other side. But I do want to have at the end of it, I want those drill holes. The most important part of this whole thing is that those drill holes do line up, and they line up real well. And if that happens, these parts can be a little bit off because you're not going to see them, and they're going to be painted flat black. So now I've got myself, well, a few minutes of drilling, a few minutes of, well, we won't put it on video. We're just going to replicate these and I'm going to make 2 extra ones just in case, and that would raise the handlebars 3/4 of an inch. If I want to go that extra little bit, I'll always have them in stock. And I've already ordered bolts that are longer and then some that are super long in case I want to go to that higher height. Who knows? I might be riding when I'm 90 years old. Who knows? Now here's where having a prototype is good, or in this case, you can just use the pieces themselves before I do all this cutting and all the deburring and cleanup. Looks like it's our lucky day. So what this will give us is, wow, this is going to really be nice when it's done. I'm going to be really, really excited about getting to do this. But again, I don't have the bolts today, and I can't make up this part today because I've got to be able to go out and fit it onto the bike. I want to make a lip around here, refinish this. I had 2 of these from the 2 bikes that I have, but I would count this as a good day because what will happen is once I cut this all out and deburr it, it's going to allow me to have this. Just picture how this is going to be when it's done. This will be, I can raise it 3/8, 3/4, 1.25 inches. I can infinitely raise this with 2 bolts. Now with all the countersinking done, I say it's time to go feed the birds and go have some lunch. Well, in this cold weather, the birds really like that I feed them more than once a day. Oh, they're all hiding out there. I don't blame him. Look at his day. Oh, God. And when you're working hard in this cold weather, making handlebar risers, you know how good that cup of coffee is going to taste. Right, Miles? Of course, right, Grandpa Wendy. Now, once they're all roughed out, just a question of putting a nice finish on them. Even though we're not going to see these, I'd like to have a nice finish on that by the time I'm done. Just makes assembling things, disassembling. And of course, because these are going to be totally adjustable, there may be times I want to take one spacer out, put one spacer in, raise the bar, lower the bar. Who knows? I'm a crazy person. You never know what crazy people are going to do. Now, as I finish up this project for today, I had one other thought in mind here, something that, and this is a very practical, inexpensive modification you can make to any bike with these type of risers. Now, I wanted to mention something. This is very funny. To me, it's very funny. Anyway, this is one of the bikes I customized back in the 70s, I think 75. It appeared in a magazine in 1976. And that's yours truly on the cover. But the purpose of it is not to toot my flute here, but say, take a look at this bike. Now, my tastes have changed over the years. This was a very impractical, uncomfortable motorcycle to ride. It was a lot of fun, not the most comfortable bike. If I had it now, I'd be putting higher handlebars on it. And this is what that bike originally looked like. Years and years before I did all those modifications. You know what? Nowadays I'd rather have it just the way it is in this picture. And the point is, my tastes have changed in how I like to and enjoy modifying motorcycles. I don't want uncomfortable seats. I don't want clip-on handlebars. I don't want engines that are too peaky to enjoy riding. And for me, track days are over. I'm looking to make practical, inexpensive, fun modifications to motorcycles. And as I'm sitting here, maybe Kawasaki did me a favor by not having those 250 parts available, because I'd be out basically just a little less than $300. That money is in I can buy a set of tires for the R1. Anyway, simple modifications, inexpensive, things that are fun to do and don't make a motorcycle not fun to ride. We've evolved, hey, but we all evolve. That's the way it is. And even our evil twin project, which is well underway, we have a lot of little modifications to make to that. A lot of little things we're going to do along the way. Hope you enjoy sharing them with us. Hope you enjoy watching these videos. And I've enjoyed YouTube and learned from it and enjoyed it. And sometimes it's just fun watching. Doesn't matter either way. And thanks a lot for watching.